Okay.
We're both Johns, so you have to clarify when you say John's going to do this or that.
My name is John Powell. I'm a professor at UC Berkeley, and I run the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. And I'm here with the amazing legend, John Legend, and we both are part of SCORE. And SCORE is a program sponsored by Kellogg, and it stands for Solidarity Council on Racial Equity. And the goal is to promote solidarity between people on a daily basis. Culture is one of the ways, music is one of the ways that bring people together in a very powerful way. And there's no one better at that than John Legend. So John, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again. And like you said, we're on the SCORE Council together, and I'm always edified by your comments and your contributions to the conversations that we have as a group. And I'm excited to speak with you, but also very intent on learning from you today as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, tell us, a little bit about your music, how you got involved in music, and specifically how you got involved in using your music platform to also help us think about issues of the day, including racial justice.
Well, I grew up in the Pentecostal church in Springfield, Ohio, and my early musical experiences were almost completely rooted in gospel music and the church. So my grandfather was our pastor. My grandmother was our church organist. My mom was our choir director. And so we were very involved in the leadership of the church as a family and very involved in the music. When you hear me play today, when you hear me sing today, you're hearing so much of that church influence, that gospel music influence, the influence of my grandmother particularly. Part of my musical identity is taking that foundation in gospel and soul music and incorporating that with modern popular music. I always looked up to artists who use their platform to try to make the world a better place. And so many of my favorite artists were not only great musicians, great entertainers, but they also saw their unique position in society as an opportunity for them to make the world a better place, use their influence, use their social capital to try to improve the world. People like Harry Belafonte and Aretha Franklin and Nina Simone and Stevie Wonder, people who not only were successful as musicians, but folks who took their substantial wealth and substantial social influence and used it to try to make the world better. So when I was 15 years old, I was part of an essay competition sponsored by McDonald's, of all places. And McDonald's said in the essay prompt, "How do you plan to make Black history?" And my answer to that in essay form was, I'm going to become a successful musician.
Wow.
And I'm going to use that success to try to make the world a better place. I said that when I was 15, and I've been trying to live that in my career ever since. I've been very fortunate to really see a lot of my dreams come true in that regard, where I've had the level of success that I wanted as a musician, but also never forgot where I came from and never forgot that early motivation that I had to use the success to try to make the world better.
Well, it's amazing that you had that vision at 15, and it's even more amazing that it's become a reality.
Well, my dad remembered it, and I had forgotten it for a while. I hadn't thought about the essay that I wrote. One of his friends had given him the article that talked about me winning the competition back then, and had a reprinting of the essay that I wrote back then. And he was so amazed of how my life, has gone on to be a manifestation of those things that I said back then. And he showed it to me, and I was pretty amazed too. I was like, I didn't realize that I was, so focused even at age 15 on what I really wanted to do, and to see it really coming true now is pretty incredible.
So, I grew up in Detroit, and when I was 14, I went to a concert. It actually wasn't a concert, a sock hop, and there was a little kid there named little Stevie Wonder who was playing. And so when you talk about Stevie and Aretha, and of course I've met Harry Belafonte many times, I'm reminded that it's not just music, that what you do, what they do, is feed the soul and help
Hmm.
bring people together through your music, but you go beyond that as well. So for people who are disinclined to be involved, who are feeling like it's all just politics and it doesn't matter, why should we vote? Why should we care? What message would you have for them?
Well, my message is it really does matter. There's so many things that are on the line right now that are decided by politicians. And if they're decided by politicians, then they're decided by the voters that put those politicians in office. And so you have choices to make about women's reproductive freedom. You have choices to make about even just believing in democracy and whether or not we'll honor the results of our elections. You have choices to make about tax policy, about whether or not we'll invest in fighting climate change and all the resilience that we'll need to deal with those issues. There's all kinds of things that are on the ballot in November, and they're on the ballot honestly every time we have an election. I don't believe voting is the only answer because I think it's important that we organize and we get involved in other ways. But voting is critical and it's important if we're going to try to make change in society because so much change is driven by what our legislature does, what our governors do, what our presidents do, what our senators do. The only way we can hold them accountable and get the right leaders in place is by being involved in our elections so that they know that they have to answer to you.
And a lot of people are running away from democracy now, challenging whether democracy is right, challenging whether or not certain people should actually have the right to vote.
Yeah.
And are trying to, we know about gerrymandering, we know about adding rules to fix voter fraud when there's no voter fraud. We can't fix these problems unless we at the same time really restore and fix our democracy.
And if we don't have a healthy democracy, I'm concerned about the health and the future of our nation. The institutions that sustain democracy, like a independent judiciary, like a free press, all these other things, if those institutions are eroded so much, then even having the nominal right to vote and the nominal democracy isn't enough because those institutions that sustain a democracy and make it a true and an honest democracy are being eroded so much.
We should try to create a structure where people can not only vote, but be involved. So people might think, I don't care who the president is. Well, that affects all of our lives, but you care who's on the school board. You care about your child's school. You care about your neighborhood. So democracy is not just something that's out there in Washington. It really affects our daily life. That's even more true for marginalized community, for communities of color, and for poor white communities. So I'm hoping that, as you say, that part of it is accepting that it doesn't mean you're always going to win, but if it's a really fair process and everyone's involved, then in the long run, we all win.
We all need to be engaged. I just got my California ballot in the mail over the weekend, and I'm going to go online and look up each of these positions, each of these elections to make sure I'm voting for someone who reflects my values in every office up and down the ballot. And I encourage everyone to do that. And I encourage everyone, particularly in California and other places where you get a mail-in ballot, you have a chance to, do your research, study a bit, take your time on the ballot and mail it in prior to the time when the election day happens.
It seems to me that the thing that's threatening us as a democracy in this country and around the world is our inability to have solidarity with people who look different than us. Race, I think of as a way that, to use a biblical term, it's the rock we could build our democracy on, being a multiracial society, or it's a rock we could use to break our democracy by insisting it only belongs to certain people. I think what you're doing, John, what we're trying to do, and what Kellogg is doing is saying we all belong.
My friend Heather McGhee wrote a beautiful book called The Sum of Us, which was really about how the entirety of America has lost out because of a zero-sum attitude toward race relations. Too many people have felt that if Black and brown people achieve equity, if they are able to get resources, it means that white people have to lose out. You see it throughout our history. You see it throughout so many public policy debates, even now, that zero-sum fallacy has infected so many of our conversations and has held us back as a nation. And if we were able to come together as a multiracial democracy and say, let's do what's best for the entire country. Let's fund our social safety net programs. Let's make sure our schools are well funded and well run. Let's make sure all of our young people have access to higher education if they want to take advantage of that. All of these ways that we can make our society stronger, better, healthier, we've denied ourselves because of the fear that some other might get some advantages that they hadn't had in the past.
I think that's exactly right. And there's a book called The Race Between Education and Technology. And they look at when women came into the educational system at the beginning of the 20th century, never quite equal to men or fair, but they argue that it caused the United States economy to explode in a positive way. That all of a sudden you had all this new talent that you had not been using coming into the education system, and it caused our country to grow. And they also argue that the new women, the new girls in our education system are people of color. More than half the children entering school in elementary school now are students of color. Yeah. And so it's not simply taking from whites to give to them, it's actually growing.
We're growing the pie, as they say, and I think so many people think of the pie as something finite that they have to fight for their portion of. But what really happens when you empower more and more people, when you give everybody a fair opportunity, you just grow everything. Like there's more innovation, there's more growth, there's more GDP, all those things. Right. When you get more people involved in the economy and in our education system, it just makes all of us stronger. And you're not competing over this finite set of resources. You're growing the innovation and the resources that we all have to share.
So I'm going to, maybe start winding up by bringing us back to your earlier statement, John. You mentioned about your gospel roots and your grandmother. My father, who died recently, was a minister. And the way he taught the gospel, that it was about love and about caring for everyone. And so part of it, belonging, solidarity, is to recognize that we are our brothers and sisters' keeper. That we should turn not on each other, but turn toward each other. Nothing exemplifies that better to me than what you do and your music.
I talk a lot about love. When I think about love, it's not just romantic love. It's not just the love you have for your close friends and your family. It is the idea that you see the humanity and you honor the humanity of people you don't even know. You empathize with them. You want the best for them. You want a public policy and a politics that honors their humanity. That's how we love in public. Cornel West said, justice is love in public. That's been my kind of secular religion, is the idea that we should love each other, and love in public looks like justice and equity and inclusion and belonging, as you would say. And so that's what I try to promote in my music, but also in my political and philanthropic work.
So again, thank you for your work. Thank you for being part of SCORE and engaging in acts of solidarity and belonging. Thank you for your music. And I'm glad that 15-year-old had his dreams realized.
Thank you, John. It's great to see you and really great talking with you.
Same here.